Hey, yo, I want to talk about Magic the Gathering and everything a new player or even someone just curious needs to know to help get started in 2026. In this video I'm going to cover what the game is, how it works, ways to play, where you should start, and then some general tips and advice that I feel I would want to know if I were in the shoes of someone brand new to the game. What this video isn't going to cover is everything, because Magic is a very old game with hundreds of products, thousands of mechanics, and even more cards. It would be impossible for me to explain all that in one video. Also, I won't cover the rules of the game, which also includes any kind of tutorial. While I am going to explain what the game is, teaching you how to play would either need a video of its own, or better yet, that's something you should learn with or from a friend you actually intend to play with. Today I just want to focus more on getting you started and pointing you in the right direction for Magic in the coming year. The last thing I'm not going to cover is obvious things that I've forgotten to mention. I'm sure there will be a lot of stuff that I've forgotten, so like me, maybe you should check the comments below for people pointing out things that I've failed to cover here. And I'll try to remember them for my 2027 Beginner's Guide. Right, let's get started. What is the game? Magic the Gathering is a card game that can be enjoyed competitively at tournaments or events, casually with friends old and new at your local game store or around your kitchen table, or if it's preferable you can play online using one of the many digital versions of the game, more on that later. Magic the Gathering is a fantasy card game meant to capture the feeling of being a wizard summoning mighty creatures, like this demonic abyssal harvester, and casting powerful spells like this sorcery incinerating blast. But this game is super flexible, so if that's not your speed, then you can always just have a deck of something that you do like. Perhaps mystical elves, magical fairies, or even just some kitty cats for instance. Magic has a bit of something for everyone and all of it works together in one game. That's because Magic the Gathering is a game about the multiverse. There is a story to go along with it, which you can read mostly for free online, link in the description, but only if you're interested. It's not required reading and most people don't, as everything you need to play is written on the cards. But if you do read the story, you'll discover Magic is a game about planeswalkers, like Kaito, Ajani and Vivian here, special beings gifted with the power to travel between dimensions. And I know that sounds like a lot, but basically all that really means is Magic has an excuse to get weird with it. If you want to do a set about warriors and dragons, fine, call that set Tarkir and stick it on its own plane of existence in the multiverse. Want to do robots and spaceships in a sci-fantasy setting? Sure, call it Edge of Eternities and say it's in another dimension. Want to do a death race across multiple different planes of reality? Sure, call that set Aether Drift, because Magic is a multiverse and so all of this can work together and have it still make sense in one game. Looking at sets coming in 2026, we've got Lorwyn Eclipsed, which is a Celtic folklore set about fairies and giants, Strixhaven, which is a school of wizardry accepting magical students from across the multiverse, and Reality Fracture, which is a set shrouded in mystery as we know it will be important but as of yet we don't know why. Now, Magic also has something called Universes Beyond, which uses the same game cards and rules system but features intellectual property owned by other companies. For instance, this year we're also getting a TMNT set featuring cards based on the Turtles, a Marvel set featuring cards based on heroes like the Avengers, a Hobbit set featuring cards based on Middle-earth, and a Star Trek set featuring cards from that franchise. And if you choose, these can all be mixed together and played together as it's all one big game. So how does that game work? Well, I won't go into too much depth here because I don't want to risk repeating myself if I ever do a tutorial, and there is a lot of nuance so a separate video would be needed. But in short, Magic is a 5-colour system, which means all of the cards are separated out into different colours of mana depending on how they feel to play and what they're trying to accomplish. For instance, white cards will often have a focus on gaining life, whereas red cards tend to have a focus on taking your opponent's life away. But to play those cards, first you need something called land. There's really only 2 types of card in Magic the Gathering: spells which have a mana cost to play, indicated by the number of those little symbols top right, and land which generates that mana allowing you to cast those spells. These land cards are combined with your spells to make up your deck, and you can usually play 1 land for free each turn. As the game goes on, the more land you have, the more mana you can generate and thus the more powerful spells you can cast. The land plains generates white mana, which will let you cast white spells, islands blue mana for blue spells, swamps black mana for black spells, mountains red mana for red spells, and forests green mana for green spells. Separating the cards out into 5 colours like this serves 2 main functions. First, it helps guide the players when building a deck, because 2 cards being the same colour is often an indication that they might work well together, and second, it makes it harder for players to just pick all of the best spells and stick them in one deck, because all of those spells will be spread across all 5 colours, and to cast them you'd probably need 1 of each type of land card, which you may not be guaranteed to draw from your deck. However, that's not to say that only sticking to 1 colour is the best tactic either. Some cards like this Anthem of Champions are multicolored, meaning if you look top right you'll see both the symbols for green and white, indicating that this is a multicolor spell requiring both green and white mana to be cast, and so this will go into a multicolored deck which is made up of lands of both plains and forests. Let me know in the comments if that makes sense. In addition, spells like this Fiendish Panda have symbols like this, which if you add them all together tells you how much mana in total is required to cast the card. So in this instance the panda needs 4 mana total, 1 white, probably from a plains, 1 black, probably from a swamp, and 2 from any source, either plains or swamps or perhaps even one of the other lands if you have them. There's also some cards like this Banner of Kinship which, if you look, don't require any specific colours at all, and instead just have the generic colourless casting cost, meaning they can go into any deck regardless of what land that deck contains, because any type of land can be used to cast it. Additionally, you'll discover some other cards have other symbols in their casting cost or can be cast in other ways, but these are usually set-specific mechanics, and Magic as a game is always toying with its own rules and means of play, so I won't explain all these deviations here, because they tend to be an exception and not the rule. The final thing to note is that all of the lands I've discussed so far are considered to be basic, meaning there are other types of lands that do all sorts of things, like generate mana of one of 2 different colours, or maybe generate colourless mana that can only be used for those generic casting costs, but have an additional ability. Like all Magic cards, these lands can be pretty varied, but if you're interested you can always read what they do when you see them. So what are the ways to play? Just like how a normal deck of cards can be used to play different games like Go Fish, Snap and Poker, Magic cards can also be used to play a lot of different games too. These games are called formats, and there's a lot of official ones all with their own rules, card legalities and deck construction requirements. But the most popular format is and will always be the unofficial one, which is usually called Kitchen Table Magic, or if you prefer, screw it, let's just play with whatever cards that we've got and make up our own house rules because it's a game and it doesn't matter how we play as long as we're having fun. Magic. Honestly, the best way to figure out what format you might want to play is by asking your friends what they play, and then just joining them. However, if they don't know either, or you're planning on playing with strangers and need a bit more structure, or I suppose you're just curious, then here are some of the more popular formats. Commander. Usually a 4-player all-v-all game where everyone starts at 40 life, has their own 100 card deck which contains no doubles, meaning aside from basic lands, every card in the deck needs to be different from every other card that's in there. And also, one of those 100 cards needs to be a legendary creature which is considered your commander. For instance, the Angel, Avacyn Angel of Hope, and the Ogre, Yidris Maelstrom Wielder, are both legendary creatures and so could both be your commander. The downside to this is that your deck is only allowed to contain cards that share a colour with your commander, so an Avacyn deck would only be allowed to contain white cards, and an Idris deck couldn't run any white cards at all. The upside is that your commander isn't shuffled into your deck but goes to one side and can be continuously cast throughout the game over and over. Booster Draft is a format that's a lot of fun, but it does require a bit of deck building confidence. It's a 20 life 40 card 1v1 format played over multiple matches so each player gets a chance to play several games, usually at least one against each of their opponents. Rather than each player already having a deck, everyone buys 3 booster packs, opens them and then tries to build a deck by taking it in turns to choose a card from a pack before passing the rest on. I did a video going into more detail about how it works, link in the description if you're interested. Now I'm about to upset any experienced players watching by smushing 3 formats, Standard, Modern and Pioneer, all into one, because they're basically the same. They're all 20 life 60 card 1v1 formats. The only real difference between them is which cards are and aren't legal, and that's such a kettle of fish that I'm not going to go into it here. But it is important to know that these tend to be the more competitive formats, so if that's something you're interested in, again ask the people you'll be playing against, or the stores holding the tournaments for more details about what you need to get started. Magic's got a pretty nice community. I'm sure other players will be more than happy to help you out. Word of warning though, these formats can at times be pricey to get into for a new beginner. And like I say, there are a lot of other formats, but I'm not going to list them now because most of them are just variations on ones that I've already mentioned, and if I did I'd be here all day. But a quick shout out to Pauper, Pre-Modern and Tiny Leaders Reborn though. Big fan. However, physical paper cards aren't the only way to play. There's also online options such as Arena. Arena is kind of like Paper Magic the Gathering. It doesn't have all of the cards or all of the formats, and it has special digital exclusive cards called Alchemy that couldn't really work in paper, so really Arena is kind of doing its own thing. But it does take care of all of the calculations and rules for you, which is a nice way to allow you to focus on strategy without having to get bogged down in all of the actual mechanics of how the game is played. Similarly, there's Magic the Gathering Online. It's another digital version of the game. It's older and so has a crustier Windows 95 aesthetic to it, but it is in my opinion a closer translation of the physical game to digital than Arena is. To compare, Magic Online has a wider pool of cards available, it's a bit more flexible in the formats that you can play, and I at least for now feel it's a little kinder in its monetization methods. Finally, there's also third-party applications like Steam's Tabletop Simulator to name only one. I genuinely have no idea about the legality of playing Magic the Gathering cards this way, so this isn't a recommendation, but I know that people do it. I'm just letting you know that it exists by listing it as an option here. Where should you start? Well, I've said it a couple of times, but it bears repeating. Speak to your friends or the people you intend to play with and ask what they're playing and then just do that. However, if you're looking to buy products, then I have a few recommendations. If Commander is your jam, you can buy one of the many pre-constructed decks that have been released over the past few years. This will be a full 100 card deck which contains a commander and everything a single player needs to get started. There are lots of these decks with lots of different playstyles and mechanics, and they're always bringing out more, so just pick one that you think is the most fun. They don't tend to sell out either, so I wouldn't buy the most recent ones but wait a few months for the prices to drop. But even then, honestly, I think you shouldn't pay any more than $40, $45 for one. If it were up to me, every one of these decks would be no more than $25. They used to sell them at that price, and they're just a pack of cardboard, so there's no reason they couldn't be sold for that price again. If you want a taste of Booster Draft but don't want to have to worry about deck building, then I'd recommend Jumpstart. To be honest, I'd recommend Jumpstart to pretty much any new player because it's a fantastic way to get into the game. Each Jumpstart pack contains everything you need for half of a 40 card deck. So that's 20 cards themed around things like dinosaurs, lightning, and unicorns. You buy 2 packs, you smush them together, and bam! You have a fully ready to play 40 card under the sea witchcraft deck. If you don't like that combination, take it apart and maybe mix the half you like with a 3rd pack, or 4th. Up to you. Some Jumpstart product releases were better than others. The original that had packs that look like this was a lot of fun, if you can still find it, but from what I can tell the Foundations Jumpstart that looks like this seems to be a good one too and should be available for sale for the next year or so at least. Speaking of Foundations, there's a Foundations Beginner box that includes everything a new player needs to get started, including dice, a game board, a reference guide booklet, and 10 predetermined Jumpstart packs specifically included to help you learn the game. The beginner box isn't by any means a requirement, but it is a good foundation to begin, hence the name. And there's also a starter collection which is okay. It's got a cardboard storage box and a bunch of cards in there that you'll be able to build a huge variety of decks with. None of them are particularly powerful though, so this is only really a stepping stone to get into formats like Standard and Commander. It is worth having just for the back catalogue of certain staple cards like the included 4 copies of Llanowar Elves for instance, but if you're looking to get competitive then this won't be all that you'll need, and you'll end up having to buy other cards from other sets too. If you're just playing casually though, then this is a pretty good purchase, especially if you're buying for a small group of friends or family, as this one product can be used to make multiple decks for multiple people that will all be fairly balanced against each other from what I can tell. And you won't need anything extra except for additional trackers, dice, or a pen and paper to keep live totals and scores. My favourite product though is called pre-release. When a new set comes out, most stores will usually have this product for sale as part of an early event, and this is, in my opinion, one of the most fun ways to play the game. For your money you get a box, you get a life tracking dice, and you get a bunch of packs to build a 40 card deck with. In terms of vibes, it's somewhere between Jumpstart and a Booster Draft, where you do have to build your own deck, but you don't have to share the cards you've opened with anyone else. Pre-release comes in a self-contained box, and while the deck you end up with won't be fantastic in other formats, it's still usually one of the cheaper ways to start playing. I would recommend you give it a go at least once, it's great. General tips and advice. Hey, don't spend too much money. Some cards can be very expensive, but it's only a game. Winning isn't everything, have fun with it. The gathering part of Magic the Gathering is one of the more important aspects, and in my experience it's better to have a balanced environment with the people that you play with, where it's just as likely that anyone will win, than it is to have everyone racing to the top by buying the most powerful cards. Trust me, ramping up the power level doesn't always result in more interesting gameplay. Sometimes it's worse. But if you must, trade your cards with people rather than buy new ones. Or if people are fine with it, proxy the cards by just printing them out from a computer. If you are going to buy cards, then buy singles. If you really want a specific card from a set, then don't buy a bunch of packs hoping to open one. Instead, spend less money and just buy the card on its own. Lots of websites sell singles, but also talk to your local game store. Whether you know it or not, they're the backbone of this community, and I'm sure that they would love to help you out one way or another. If you want to look up a card and see what it does, do not use Gatherer. It's Magic's official card database, and even though it's been updated lately, it's still hilariously bad. Sometimes it will display the wrong card if it displays them at all. Some cards are just missing, it's atrocious. Instead, use Scryfall, link in the description. It's a wonderful tool and it's even updated with spoilers and preview cards before they're released. I use it all the time and I cannot sing its praises enough. If you're looking to get into Commander specifically and want to build your own deck, EDHREC, link in the description, is a database of other people's deck lists, and it shows you which cards synergize well with which commanders. It's not a perfect tool because it doesn't distinguish whether someone built a deck to be competitive or just for fun, for instance, but it will certainly help you get started thinking about deck construction yourself. The penultimate piece of advice I can give is that there's always exceptions to every rule. For instance, earlier I said commander decks can't have doubles. While that's mostly true, it's not always true, as cards like Relentless Rats specifically say on them that you can have as many copies of them in a deck that you like. So always take everything everybody says with a pinch of salt. No one is a monolith and no one can be right 100% of the time. That includes you. So be kind to each other, listen to each other when you speak. It's a game, enjoy it. Don't get upset when you lose and try to use playing the game as an opportunity to make more friends. And the final piece of advice I can give is that you should support the creators who you feel have been of value to you. Link to my Patreon in the description below, but it's worth remembering that even bigger channels than mine still live and die on the algorithm and community support. Hashtag support your local creator. And that's it. Have fun in 2026, good luck, don't take it too seriously, like and subscribe. Thank you very much for watching this video, and thank you to everyone that supports me, like 27 Publications, Eggboy the Particle that permeates all existence, Blank Space, Wan Peko Jozu, Miss Murder, a random Patreon, Ominous Jazz, and the rest of my patrons whose names are on screen now. I'd also like to thank the sponsor for this video, me and my Patreon page, where you can get your name credited on screen too. Check it out in the link in the description below. Hit the like button, leave a comment, have a good 2026, most importantly subscribe and share this video with a friend. Hit the notification bell and do all those things the algorithm loves. If you agree or disagree with any of my points, or you can tell that I've been slowly losing my voice throughout this video, then let me know and I will see you next time.